Welcome to the July 11th meeting of the Westford Select Board. We are going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Andrea.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good. Welcome. First up is open forum. We have a couple things tonight. One is that many of you may know that Westford is, like many communities, are addressing a bunch of fiscal challenges in our coming year. And so to help us prepare for that, we've convened a budget task force, which has been meeting diligently, weekly, pulling together all kinds of interesting information we look forward to sharing with you. The budget task force looks forward to sharing information at the upcoming town retreat. But in advance of that, we wanted to have a public session where we wanted to convene and welcome input, review what we've seen so far, what we've learned, talk about the outline of the work that we're doing. And that is going to be on August 24th. It's July 24th, excuse me, August 24th. July 24th, thank you, Kristen, at the Millennium School at 7 o'clock. And so just a little bit less than 2 weeks from now. So we look forward to having anyone there. If you'd like to get more information on it, or if you'd like to fill out an online form that we'll make sure we review, you can do that at the Budget Task Force webpage. If you Google Westford, Mass. Budget Task Force, you'll get to that page and you'll see the link and also the info about the event.
Tom, is it also a virtual option for that meeting?
Yeah, so it's a hybrid option like this. That's why we're having it at Millennium, to accommodate that. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, so if you're not here, if you're on vacation and want to come join, you'd be most welcome. We also wanted to spend a minute to celebrate a grant that we received. Maybe, Kristen, you want to share some about that?
Sure. So the town of Westford wrote the U.S. EPA a grant for brownfields remediation for 12 North Main Street. And kudos to Eric Heidemann and the team for writing that grant back in October and November. We were awarded a $500,000 grant for brownfields remediation at 12 North Main Street, and I was lucky enough to attend the EPA event in Worcester on Friday afternoon, where 16 entities were awarded grants in the state of Massachusetts, and it was the largest brownfields grant announcement for the state of Massachusetts. So just wanted to present this check to the select board in the amount of $500,000, and Eric and I are working hard to get a request for proposals together to get the remediation moving again for 12 North Main. This dollar amount also includes community involvement and community participation, so we'll make sure to be doing that well in advance of making any movements. As we know, the building has been reviewed many times by the 12 North Main Task Force and the Historical Commission and the like, but would just like to congratulate the town again, as it's a huge accomplishment, and we sent out a press release this morning noting such.
Great. Well, congrats, and congrats to the team that worked so hard on this. We'll make sure we don't lose this check. Get it right to the bank after the meeting.
The drive-through?
Thank you so much for all that hard work and for celebrating that. Any other items for open forum this evening? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi. Yes, Diane, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Diane, I'm sorry, but could you just state your
yes,
name?
Yes, Diane Wood, 122 Depot Street.
Thank you.
So I did send this letter, and it is in your packet, but I figured I'd read it for the rest of the community to understand what my request was. And I'd like you to share with the community, the Select Board to share with the community what the next steps will be as it relates to communication and the process for the zoning, the firearms zoning bylaw. As the co-sponsor of this bylaw, what are the steps to review the input received through these meetings and make a recommendation? And will there be a scheduled joint board meeting for the two leadership groups to discuss their rationale? I understand the next public hearing is next Monday, the 17th. But other than that, would like to understand the steps, certainly in light of needing to reach some of the milestones for special town meeting, and what dates may be needed to meet and what information may be meet. Also, as previously called out, the Attorney General's Municipal Law Office should be making the decision regarding the Acton bylaw language by August 21st, and I hope that will be taken into consideration. hopefully that'll come through, but according to their municipal law office, they're due for a decision regarding that language. And that, that language in particular has been, or the number of stores has been touted as an issue, or a discussion point, let's put it that way. So I'm hoping we'll have that as a reference and a data point for the two leadership groups to discuss and work through. So looking for some guidance and information for you, for the rest of the community, so we just understand it's a busy time, we all know. Summer's coming, people are on vacation, no one has the bandwidth, but before you know it, we're going to be at milestones for special town meeting. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So we can come back in a future meeting. I know we discussed having, once the input's been received and the final language has been prepared by the planning board, to invite them back to have a discussion with them. But we'll make sure we coordinate with them and make sure we publicize that. Okay. Anything else? I want to make sure we catch everybody. Next up for the 7:05, it's a consent agenda. Request to approve the following: a special license. The event is Comedy Night. The applicant is Michael Riley. The date is July 15th, 2023, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at 11 Summer Village Road. And then there's separately a town common and bandstand request by the Parish Center of the Arts, the pop music band. The applicant is Alice Phelan. The date is Saturday, August 26th, 2023. The time is 12 to 6 p.m. And then there's another event, Parish Center for the Arts Bluegrass Concert. Applicant is Alice Phelan. And the date for that is September 9th, 2023, and the time there is 12 to 8 p.m.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, fantastic. Next up is the joint meeting with the school committee to restructure the membership of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee from 13 voting members and 3 alternates to a mutually agreed upon membership. We're going to hear from the chairs of that about exactly what they're requesting. But before we do that, I think we want to make sure the school committee can come into session as well.
Sure, yep, so I'm expecting Bill McDonald, Sean Kelly, and Chris Sanders virtually.
So I do not see Sean Kelly, but Chris Sanders and Bill McDonald are on.
Expecting to.
Maybe because it's 7:07 and not 7:10.
Yeah, I mean, I think I.
Do we want to do a new old business
Yeah,
before?
why don't we jump ahead? That's great. And
Oh, here he
Oh.
is. He just got.
If the chairs want to come forward and take a seat, you can. Once we have the school committee in session, we can go ahead and talk about the proposal.
We usually vote to open session?
I think you can just call to order.
Oh, okay. I'll call to order this meeting of the school committee with the select board on Tuesday, July 11th.
Okay, thank you. And that was, if you're listening, that was from Valerie Young, school committee chair.
Thanks.
Great. Well, if you guys, thank you to the co-chairs of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee for coming forward. If you'd like to just explain to the public what the request is, and then we can proceed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the opportunity to provide our updates on what we are trying to do. In the past couple of months, DEI did not have a quorum, so we had difficulty having the enough members attend to hold the public meetings based on the public meeting laws. And therefore, what we are suggesting is reduce the full member to 9 full members and 10 alternates. That will give us the flexibility to provide the opportunities whoever has applied to be a member or an alternate, accept their applications, and at the same time be able to have quorum in the future meetings. There is a list of members who have showed their interest and they have submitted their applications as well. And we would like the select board and the school committee to accept their applications as we have notified in this particular list. Wendy Gloyd, we are requesting her to be accepted as a voting member, means full member, and Muhammad Ali, Radhika, Meghna Patel, Cynthia King, Anita Tonakaran Yugan, Joanne, Marie Claire, and Catherine Creed as alternate members.
Okay, thank you. So the proposal is to modify the membership to nine full members and 9 alternates. I guess any questions from either board before we,
9 full members and 10 alternates.
9 full members and 10 alternates. Thank you.
I guess just one question.
Sure.
So, I mean, you got Wendy Lloyd picked as the voting member. Was that a, how did you, was that?
Reason, yeah. The question, is there a reason?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
we'll get a whole bunch of names to figure it. These.
Absolutely. Why she's accepted as a full member. So Wendy Lloyd is pretty much active in the community. She has showcased her commitment to some causes. She runs a youth leadership program every summer. She has shown her commitment and dedication to be a volunteer and give in her time to the community. There is a reason why we are accepting her as a full member. Rest of the members, we have a lack of background. We would want to give them the opportunity to attend and dedicate time from their busy schedules in the next few months. And if we see that they are regularly attending the meeting, they're contributing to the work groups, then we will come back to the select board and school committee and request their conversion from an alternate to a full member. But again, we really need to see how it really goes.
So it's more case of process. So I guess we almost never overturn the vote of a committee, right? So did the DEI committee vote for Wendy as the voting member and rest as alternates? That's all I was asking. Okay.
We haven't taken a vote.
Okay.
Part of the reason is that we realized that we wanted, excuse me?
I thought maybe they have a quorum.
Is there no quorum?
So that was part of the reason. The other is we want to be able to get this going as soon as we can. We understand schedules are challenging in the summer.
Okay, I don't think I see any other questions, so I'm going to take a shot at the motion, which I think is to modify the charge of the jointly appointed Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to include 9 members and 10 alternates.
So moved.
Second.
And second. And so why don't we vote first and then, okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Is it better if I do it in my?
Please do, yeah, thanks, Aye.
Looking for a motion from the school committee? To change, sorry, I'll add some wordings just in case, to change the DEI committee membership to 9 permanent members and 10 alternates. Bill with the motion and
I'll second it. Okay.
Sean seconds. Okay, great. All those, any last discussion? No, okay. All those in favor, Bill?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and do you want to,
And looking for a motion to adjourn.
Actually, wait, we
No,
have members now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Members as
We
well.
have members, we haven't members yet.
You should vote on
you're exactly
Kidding.
right, you're exactly right, my mistake. Okay, so we have a slate before us. I guess why don't I go ahead and repeat the slate real quickly. So I'll accept the motion to appoint Wendy Lloyd as a voting member and the following as alternates: Muhammad Ali, Radhika Sriham, Megan Patil, Cynthia King, Anita Turkarn-Nguyen, Joanne Kerr, Mary Claire O'Neill, and Catherine Creed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Alternates, the last.
As alternates. Yeah, right. What I tried to say is the following as alternates as a group. So, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Looking for a motion to mirror the select board?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Chris?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Valerie.
Are we good? I can adjourn?
You can.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
And a second.
Seconded.
Great. All those in favor? Bill?
Aye.
Chris? Sean?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Aye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the support
Great.
and the time.
Thank you, and yeah, thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to move on to our 7:20 item, which is old new business. The first item is to request approval of additional 2023 annual appointments for committee and board members as listed in the packet. And Eric, if you could please just put that up in case anyone from any members of the public have questions about it.
I can just read it out loud. So
be great.
Agricultural Commission, Darren Tiesadu, 14 Russell's Way. Cultural Council, Arapo Kauri, 102 Russell's Way. Pedestrian Safety, Chris Chris Barrett, 13 Bose Hill Road, and Permanent Town Building Committee, Tom Mahana for Butterfield Lane. These were just waiting for confirmation through the town clerk's office. That's why they didn't make it on our previous round of approvals.
Any questions from the board?
So moved.
Well, I have a question. Since I'm one of the people, can I vote in this?
You can.
I can? Okay. Just want to clarify.
Only once, though.
Okay, very good.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you all for your service. Much appreciated. Next, we're going to be hearing from Nicole Lavalette, our Community Wellness Coordinator. Welcome, Nicole, and she'll be giving us an update on her many good works in town and what some of her plans are going forward. Welcome.
So I'm just going to give you an overview of the information that's provided in the packet. So I've been here officially for 13 months. And within those 13 months, I've had an opportunity to work with various departments, lots of residents.
Excuse me one second. Patty, would you mind just pulling that door shut? Getting a little bit of
We just need to leave
distraction.
a crack open.
Or maybe ask, Joe, would you mind? They're moving a little bit. Great.
Patty, we just need to leave it like a crack open for open meeting.
So people know they can come in.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Would you like me to start over or continue?
No, I could hear you. I just wanted to hear you better.
I was mentioning to Kristen, I can talk a lot and I can talk fast, but I can also talk really loud. So if that's needed, I can definitely do that. So, really have had an opportunity to work with lots of departments, lots of town groups and committees and residents within the last 13 months. So really with a focus around the mental health and substance use disorder, but also with a lot of other opportunities around parenting supports, domestic violence, interpartner violence, and other areas to support residents. I've had a great opportunity to work with our town social worker, Allison Christopher, where we really were able to kind of identify our backgrounds. And I have a background with children and families and her background with geriatrics. So we've been able to really kind of support residents in a different way that I think wasn't necessarily intended by the position, but really has kind of flourished within the past year. With that, we've worked, as far as looking at the data that we have and what is available, and as far as looking, truly around what we do have through the different hospitals and the CHNA, the Greater Lowell Foundation, as far as the mental health, the substance use, and other aspects, which is kind of where the focus kind of went as far as the different presentations we were able to bring within this last spring around self-care, mental health, and actually second one on mental health as well. So I've also had an opportunity to work with the schools as far as presentations with the guidance departments, as far as who I am and the availability for supports for school guidance counselors, school adjustment counselors, and for teachers and parents as well. I also presented at the school committee to share who I am and the availability with supports around that for the schools. So I've had some great conversations, been able to give specific resources for school guidance counselors, been able to talk to parents, through referrals for guidance counselors as well. So through the fall with the school adjustment counselor at the high school identified a need for some very specific resources around teen substance use. So I was able to put together a guide for the guidance counselors and the adjustment counselors on what is available for Westford residents that are adolescents that might be struggling or exploring or looking at things in a different way, and how do we support those residents. And through that, we actually have a new Young Person Addictions Anonymous group that is actually being facilitated by our partners at Family Continuity, which is the agency that runs the COIN through the police department, if you're familiar with that. And so that actually meets twice a month at the library. So that's a resource and a support for young people that are exploring or have an addiction. So that's a resource that we've been able to put together. So also with the schools, we've been really exploring that mobile clinician resource that we have, and it's an amazing opportunity that was you were able to provide us with the ARPA funding. So the mobile clinician is really a bridge service. So you may be aware that mental health services can be quite a long wait list, no matter your age and no matter really your insurance. So with that, we're able to kind of provide a bridge service, or maybe this is really the only service that a resident might need. And so we've had children maybe as young as 5 up to residents in their 70s that have been able to utilize this service, get almost immediate counseling services, and then also we're able to support them with ongoing therapy referrals. So that I call it kind of like a bridge service, so that somebody isn't necessarily waiting 6 months alone. So there is this opportunity, and it isn't for everybody, but we explore what's the best fit for those residents. But the guidance counselors and school adjustment counselors are able to provide parents the information as a resource and a referral. But also, Allison Christopher takes referrals as well. Hers have actually tended to be the older residents. Mine just tend to be the younger residents, but it is really able to support a lot of residents. I believe in here is about 35 referrals that I was able to support with that service. So I've worked with the COA, bringing in a QPR, which is question, persuade, refer training for during their men's breakfast. So it's an exploration on suicide prevention. So that was through Emerson Health. They were able to come in and provide that for the men's breakfast. Is everybody familiar with what the men's breakfast is? Okay. So that was a resource, a lot of collaboration. We're in the process of exploring possible funding sources for the mobile clinician as the ARPA funds wrap up, I guess you could say, towards the fall. We're looking at different possible grant opportunities to continue that mobile clinician service in Westford. I've worked with the Westford Police Department with their health and wellness team for the Portico app that they received, as far as resources and information to upload into that through the identifying pastoral services, but also mental health services, substance abuse services, et cetera. So for the resources for the Portico app, and also with the health and wellness team on various initiatives. They recently had their improving wellness, I'm going to get the language wrong, but they had a workshop that was at Stony Brook Middle School that was provided for all first responders. So Westford first responders were able to attend that, and various communities were able to come as well. So working with them to bring those presenters to Westford. And then also the local events that they have. So the Faith in Blue attended, and then the NAB, they had a bike safety event, and a few other events. Today I was at the farmers market, able to help residents actually that came up to the table with informational questions about various topics, and so being able to guide them to the appropriate departments, but also with the mental health resource questions as well. And so for departments, it's really whoever has questions. So people might, believe it or not, pop in when they come to the clerk's office, or if they go, to the assessor's office. So I'm a resource that's available if people pop into town hall as well. But whoever needs a support or resource, depending upon the department, it might be guiding them, or I might be able to directly support them as far as the departments. So resident calls, it really just depends. I've only been here for a year, so I think it's still a new service. I think it takes a little bit for people to, recognize and understand what the resource is. So, I was able to support 36 residents through the mobile clinician referrals, but then also 16 additional residents through meetings, and it was various topics. Like I said, anywhere from some very personal things up to, it might just be, I have some questions about, believe it or not, like tax questions. I might not be able to answer those questions. Actually, I cannot answer those questions, but I know who can. So please go see, and being able to guide them to the appropriate department. And then in the packet, it shared the various committees and boards that I'm participating in. So DA Marion Ryan has actually quite a few task force that she offers. So participating in the Safe Babies, Safe Kids Task Force and the Opioid Task Force through that. And then the other ones are for the most part within the town. And the other piece that I didn't mention is I was at the last select board meeting for the opioid settlement fund, so participating in that task force in the continuation of the determination of how we'll be able to spend those funds is another aspect. And then the last piece is really, where does this position move forward? So all of those things that I shared, continuing those pieces throughout the year. I think grant opportunities are a huge aspect to be able to provide continuing presentations from appropriate presenters around various topics, so looking at a few different grant opportunities. And one piece in here was Stony Brook Middle School does a end-of-year project. I might fumble on the actual language. Actually, Kristen participated in their end-of-the-year presentation on it. One of the presentations was around me. So it was kind of a fun little presentation that the group of 8th graders did on mental health. And they really focused on a mental health. This was the middle school group that put this together, a mental health event. And I thought it was such a wonderful opportunity to really expand on this group of Westford young residents in this idea that they had. And so looking at grants to possibly bring this to Westford. So working with the middle school civics teacher and what that would look like, and collaborating actually with these 8th grade students on this great idea that they had. And it's not just because I was participating in their presentation. So then there's various other things. One thing that I recently connected with Chief Chambers about was this opportunity to do the adult mental health first aid specifically for public safety. And so that would actually focus on training all Westford first responders in this mental health first aid. So looking at what that would look like, he thought it was a wonderful opportunity. So I'm already certified in the adult mental health first aid, so it would just be a secondary certification to be able to provide that to the Westford first responders.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
You
Questions
have
from the board?
certainly been very busy over the last 13 months and have, I think, just achieved an incredible amount of work over the last 13 months. So I would just like to say thank you for all of your hard work here and for putting all of this together. I mean, you kind of, in many ways, you've created this job because, you know, we kind of gave you a bit blank slate when we created it and said, you know, go forth. And you have. And I think, you know, like I said, I think you've done a terrific job, and just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Chris?
Yeah. So have you had a chance to talk with the Healthy Westford Committee yet?
So that isn't one that I had, and I thought at the last two select board meetings, you actually mentioned they were thinking of doing a survey.
Right.
I know that had been discussed, so that was a list for things to kind of explore. So
I definitely think they would benefit from a partnership with you, and yeah, so if you could reach out to them, and they actually meet during the day, so that's convenient for, you know, folks like yourself. I think Bill Harmon is the current chair.
I think so.
Yeah. So the other thing is plans to sort of get the word out more about you and your services. Like you mentioned, you took some calls, but you know you want to see that volume get increased over time. Because people may not really know about you at this point. So, you know, going to the farmer's market, I think that's a great idea. But any other thoughts on how you're going to expand your presence in the community?
So what you just asked me is what I ask almost every resident that will speak with me, because I think it's and I have a family member that lives in town too, and exploring what that looks like how do you get your information? So I participated in the strategic planning at a table last year, and that was like my board. It was, how do you get your information in town? So the town manager newsletter was actually the biggest respondent, so I continue to participate and provide articles to Kristen for the town manager newsletter. But I think it's an interesting question. You know, social media is such a huge aspect for so many residents as far as how they get that information. So I'm not on the social media piece. The town does have a page, so as far as posting those things, but I guess I'm gonna ask as far as whatever ideas you may have, because I'm very open to learning how to get the information.
So two thoughts I have, and one, I don't, you know, again, we'll defer to the school committee on this, because really the school's email distribution lists and the way that they can disseminate information to a large number of residents is, I think, one of the most efficient ways we have to getting that information out. So I would ask them or the school superintendent if perhaps you could be promoted somehow through their literature, because you know, you're doing a lot of work in the schools already, and I think that's a good way to let the parents know. And this is probably a little harder to take advantage of, but the Westford Moms Facebook group is also, I think, a really good way to get the word out. Now, you joining that yourself may not be appropriate, but maybe somebody from a board or committee who is also a member of that group might be able to make that connection and get the word out about your services.
A group that I don't, I agree, it sounds like, you're connecting with the groups, who have kids in school and parents, and then through the senior center and Allison and, our older community. I wonder, and I don't have an answer to this, okay, so it's a question, but how do we connect with, residents in town who aren't part of either of those two communities?
Other questions?
I just said,
Yep.
so I know that Kristen's got a, I think it's monthly WCAT presence. I don't know if you've got enough content that if you had a monthly WCAT 15-minute, on what's going on with activities in town for mental health and awareness kind of questions that we get. Again, another demographic that watches WCAT you'd be able to reach. And then maybe, I don't know how it would work, but to talk to Ellen Rain with the library, because one of our biggest programs in town is our youth reading, and as a way to somehow, work into that to get your name known to the moms and the kids. But I'm sure there's a lot of stress in that group from time to time. They could benefit from someone to talk to.
So, can I just make, so one piece that I did actually put in here is I'm going to be exploring, really kind of starting a postpartum parent support group. So actually, I spoke with some residents today just to kind of explore thoughts if it would be something that they felt was needed. There's an agency called First Connections out of Acton, which isn't too far from us, but it was interesting just to hear, well, Westford doesn't have it, so we have to go all the way to Acton, and that can be a barrier, if you're being not even just a new parent, just being a parent in general and traveling. So that's a piece. I mean, that's a younger population, so maybe not necessarily, that middle population, but it might address some of those pieces. So, and when you mentioned the libraries, I'll be exploring space at the library. So that's when you mentioned that, it made me think of that.
Yeah, I'm also really impressed with the range of offerings that you've created, and it sounds like the mobile clinician is pretty well accessed, and that's great. I wonder if we might pick kind of an awareness goal over the next year, whether it's through the Community Behavioral Mental Health Committee. I know there's some members of faith, the faith leaders that are part of that, and the faith community, I think, has their own sort of circle for sharing information, and that sharing this from the pulpit's a great opportunity, I think, for them to know about. I think if the schools are open to it, you have the biggest open ears during kindergarten orientation night. That's when the parents are like 100% listening and hanging on every word. And so if you could get just a minute there just to make sure people know that it's there. I'm sure you're already connected with first responders to try to meet with people in crisis or transitioning from crisis. But I think, it sounds like we've got a really good thing. I just want to make sure when I brag about it to people in town, which I do all the time, a lot of people don't know about it because it's new. So I think that's a great thing to work on. So you've been at it for a year. Aside from finding more ways to connect, is there anything that you've noted that you want to really do more of, or something that you want to give more focus to, do you think?
So the parent support, my background is really with children and families and providing supervision to staff as far as the programming I've done in the past. That's really where that postpartum parent support group came from. Almost selfishly is something that I enjoyed doing in the past, but it sounds like it's really something needed in Westford, so that was a newer focus for that piece. And then also exploring more of, you mentioned the Healthy Westford, but more committees, getting to know more people, I think through that will be a support for myself, and getting to know the community a little bit too. And then exploring the data that we have, so I know that's a piece as well. So that some of the data sets that we have such small numbers that you kind of really have to dig in to kind of get that information. So kind of looking a little bit more at the opportunities to kind of bring that information, as well as grants. So looking at more grant opportunities to bring money to be able to provide some more of these great presentations that I know we can bring to Westford, because they were really well received by the residents that attended. So that is another piece.
So just on that data piece, Nicole and I have had conversations about the conversations that you've been having with the health department related to the community health assessment or the community health improvement plan. And I know that the board is still going back and forth and wants more information on that, so we're working on that. We hope to bring that to you for the next meeting. But we think that a lot of data that would come out of that community health assessment would also inform the work that Nicole is doing. So we'll come prepared with some additional information for you related to that. And I facilitated a meeting with Nicole and the health department and some others about, and Allison Christopher at the senior center and Jennifer Claro, about how all of their services are melding together, not competing for services. So we're really on a great track for all three of these departments to work together collaboratively into the future. And I think you'll see that in some of the goals that Nicole put forward for fiscal '24.
Well, thank you so much for coming here. I really, I hope we can continue to learn about what you're finding success in. I celebrate the idea that you're going out after grants for continuing the mobile clinician role. I think that's great. We never have enough money for everything we'd like, but I would certainly want to know if you found that the mobile clinician connection for people in crisis had a huge uptake, was having a big impact, because I think we'd want to know that when we're making budget decisions for the town. So I look forward to continuing the discussion.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nicole? Okay, thanks,
Thank
Nicole.
you.
Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is to review a draft letter from the Select Board to the Mass Legislature to support remote and hybrid participation of town meetings to increase voter participation. I see Tom's here, if Tom wants to come up and answer any questions that we have. And thank you, Andrea, for jumping in and correcting some of the language. I think that was very helpful. Maybe just for the public, briefly, just want to explain what the letter is, and then we can answer any questions from the board.
Yeah. So I'm Tom Barry, with the, previously with the Access to Town Meeting Committee. I was the chair of the remote participation group and met with you folks in March of this year. We had spent, there were three of us on the committee, you probably know, Steve Edwards and Eric Babamingo and myself. We spent about 18 months looking to see how to progress towards hybrid meetings. And we quickly realized, by way of summary, that that was going to be almost impossible to do on our own as a town of Westford. We looked at several different towns. We've talked to several different towns, including Salem, New Hampshire, and Wayland, Massachusetts. Wayland is by far the furthest along in this process. They've been at it for about 2 to 3 years. They expect another 2 to 3 years before anything happens, but they do have a bill in Congress which really hasn't gotten anywhere. I think it's in the third reading. Some of you may know what that means. I don't.
It's dead.
Pretty much. I will keep in touch with the town of Wayland. But at the end of our 18 months, we decided that, along with the other two groups in the Access to Town Meeting Committee, which were all disbanded, shut down, I guess, but we decided that we should support the town of Wayland, anyone else that is looking to propose hybrid meetings. We found, I think it was Anita that told us about a bill, HR 3025, I think it is, that is in Congress right now.
That's correct.
3025. And they have a lot of supporters. So we thought that that was a good place to add our support as a town. So you asked me to draft a letter for you to send, for you or a direction the town council to clean it up a little bit and send it to the legislature, which I did. We also added to that request a couple of things that we support HR 3025, even if it goes anywhere. But in the end of the letter, it says, further, we request that the state of Massachusetts consider helping to develop the software necessary to allow towns to conduct open town meetings on a remote hybrid basis. As you know, there are 262 towns in the Commonwealth, most of which complain that they don't have enough people going to town meeting. And our thought was that for each of those 262 towns, to go to the legislature, to the state, with a different program. It just wasn't going to work. So in this letter, we're asking the state to step up, so to speak, and come up with some software that any town can use. It's a very complex situation, as you know, but that anyone can use in furthering this hybrid type of meeting. We firmly believe that that type of a meeting will add a lot of residents to the annual town meeting. I think we told them that we had an average of fewer than 400 voters out of approximately 18,000. And most towns are the same way. They just cannot get people to go to town meeting. So we thought this letter would be a good start, some form of this letter. Hopefully, town council would know exactly who to send it to. But I included in this William Driscoll, who was the author of HR 3025, Jim Arciero, and I'm sure we should probably add a few other state representatives.
Wayland is, town of Wayland, which Tom and the rest of us from ATM had been in contact with, is going their own route. They're plowing their own, but they're at a distinct advantage because they're using the company that is going to be developing their interface in order to do this is the same company from which they bought their clickers. So they've got a relationship, they've invested thousands and thousands, the town has thousands of dollars in that company to begin with. So they've developed a partnership between the town and that company. So Wayland has its own unique, needs, characteristics to be able to move forward on their own. But this is an attempt to jump on board other communities and other towns and come at it from a holistic state level. Whether or not it actually, goes anywhere in the near future, we're not positive, but it is getting some traction. And obviously, single-handedly, each community cannot do it or afford to do it on their own. So.
Good, thank you. Questions for Diane or Tom?
That looks good.
I did, as Tom mentioned, I took the liberty of editing your letter, Tom. Okay.
Perfect. I figured somebody would. Well, thank you.
It says basically the same thing, but
Okay, good. I appreciate that.
a little more organized.
Well, thank you for your work on this topic. Worthy topic. I guess is it the pleasure of the board to go ahead and vote on the letter as edited by Andrea, or do we want to take out an advisement, do any additional review between now and our next meeting? I would feel comfortable moving forward with the letter as edited, but.
Well, I'll move to
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
Financially, yes.
Okay. Do you want a second, John?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks for putting in the hard work for
Can you
this. I
send
know
me a
it's
copy of that letter?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Okay. Next up, we have a request, and I see that Ellen is here. Welcome, Ellen. I see we have a request from 35 Town Farm Road Task Force to restructure their membership from 13 to 12. Popular topic tonight. Ellen, could you please share with us what's behind the request and what you'd like us to do?
Absolutely. Thank you. Ellen Hardy, Chair of the 35 Town Farm Task Force Committee. Actually, I think this is a Scrivener's error that was discovered by our wonderful member Lynn Cohen, who can find detail that none of the rest of us see. We were going through she was going through our website and realized that we were authorized to have 13 members according to the list on the town's website. And we have always thought of ourselves as a group of 12, so I went back to do some history to see how this happened. When you created this committee in April of 2019, 10 of us were appointed, and that summer, Wanda Hall found that she simply could not stay a member, so she resigned. And we didn't ask for a new appointment because we had 3 people who were attending regularly, even though they weren't a member of the committee. We had sort of critical mass of 12 of us. And that December, we asked this board to appoint those other 3 to the committee, and we thought that made us 12. 1 to replace Wanda and 2 more. the way it got documented in the town's records was that we were now up to 13, 10 with a vacancy. So we just would like to correct that. We have been 12 since that December meeting, and there is no need to increase that number, because at this point, we are pretty much we're not on hold. We're very much watching carefully what is happening at Town Farm Road, and slowly but surely that will happen. But we certainly don't need to have 13. So that's one thing that we would ask the board to acknowledge, is that it is a board of 12. And the other is that Dan Britko was appointed when he was the assistant chief of the fire department by the chief to be the representative on the Town Farm Committee. On Dan's retirement last year, Mike Dennehy became the fire chief's designated person, but we recommended that Dan stay on because we knew he had a vacancy because of Roberta McGuire's death in November of '21. We thought that had all happened. But the other thing that Lynn found was that Dan Britko has not been an at-large member. And that's not on your agenda, only the number is, so I don't know if you're able to do that tonight. But and he's continued to come to all the meetings even since his retirement, so he still thinks of himself as a member, but it turns out officially he's not. So the two things we would ask is to confirm that the membership is 12, and to have Dan Britko be the 12th member of that as one of the 12 seats that exist, if you're able to do that, given the way your agenda was published tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. So maybe advice from the group. I know when we do have a committee opening, we encourage people to fill out the citizen activity form. I don't know whether we feel like at this point we should go through the process and do that in a later meeting just as a separate agenda item, or whether we feel like Dan's continued presence and sort of transition from one member type to another could be handled differently. I don't know if there was a strong feeling about that.
They have time. They're not, you said you were sort of a wait and see monitoring situation. We are, but to be perfectly honest, at this particular point, Chris, if a new member came on, there really would, I mean, Scott is on it, you know, as a group, we've made our decisions of what has to happen at Town Farm, and now we're monitoring that. For a new member to come on, I don't think it would be a lot of fun, to be perfectly honest. You'd sort of be the odd person out. But if you would like to wait and see if other people are interested, knowing that that's the status of the Town Farm Committee at the moment, if someone else wants to throw their hat in the ring, that's a perfectly fine thing to do. I just want you to know that, you know, we don't meet regularly. We are just monitoring what Choice is doing. The fire station, which I hope you know that the new training center is in, and it's beautiful,
Yes,
and it's
very
done.
exciting.
And that the school storage building is almost empty, thanks to Marilyn Day. So we're doing homework assignments, but we're not meeting as a committee. So that's entirely up to this board.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
Well, I said two thoughts. You know, one is, as I mentioned to Joe, it's very rare for this board to not endorse a committee's vote. I'm very confident the task force would vote for Dan to be the 12th member. That's the first thing. And then secondly, given Dan's experience on that committee, it's almost false advertising to say, hey, somebody else, please apply for this, knowing that Dan's got that huge kind of advantage. So I'm not sure there's any point in as long as we can legally do it, I don't see any point in waiting to do it.
Andrea, did you have I'm sorry, I thought you had earlier. John.
You still need a quorum of 7, right? Either way?
I can't do the math that quickly at this time of night, John, but if you tell me
You
that
got
that's
12,
50%
7,
of
and
12,
13
then that's,
is 7.
yes,
So-
7 will be
So
yes.
quorum-wise, that doesn't make a difference.
It does not make a difference to
So it's
us.
just a matter of whether you have a 13th member or not.
And we almost have all of us there, so quorum has never been an issue. And I would just mention that, Scott, that actually, when we did last meet, I think we were at the Cameron Senior Center, we did recommend that Dan be made the other member. So we have voted as a committee to have Dan continue. I guess we just failed to get that to this board, for which I apologize.
I'm, first of all, I'm comfortable with correcting 13 to 12, since it's always been 12. And, you know, in light of Dan's service, and now what you've just told us is that you actually did vote to recommend that he be an at-large member. You just kind of forgot to tell us. I'm comfortable with moving forward with that.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable as well. Any other feelings on this?
It's okay.
Okay, I think then what we would want to do is entertain a motion to amend the charge to the 35 Town Farm Road Task Force to change the membership from 13 to 12. Why don't we do 2 votes? So that's the first.
So moved.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And furthermore, to support the recommendation of the Town Farm, 35 Town Farm Task Force to recommend Dan Britko for membership.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Ellen.
Last third piece of news is David Hedison hopes to be the zoning board of appeals in September to go forward with his application, so everything is moving on.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you for that and all your hard work on this. Thank you, Ellen. Okay, we are now at the 7:30 item for board reports and updates. Are there any tonight? Okay. Kristen, it's over to you for town manager's report.
Sure. We have a grant, several contracts, and several purchase orders. So the Council on Aging received a mini Helping Hands grant from the Rural Transit Assistance Program to purchase 4 replacement tires for the Council on Aging and a wireless printer to be used in association with the transportation services. For contracts, we have Borden Remington, Hecros Chemicals, Holland Company, and Univar for our water treatment chemicals, which my understanding is that we go out for a joint bidding with that, so it's a per unit price that's noted in your packet. A contract for Weston and Sampson for our landfill monitoring services for $16,900, which is a traditional contract. And then we added today, as we noted, that there was a break-in contract with Christina Bizas, our mobile health clinician, for a 1-year contract extension effective July 1st through June 30th through the Council on Aging. We have about $13,000 left in that account, and she's also lowered her contract price from $200 an hour to $150 an hour to be able to serve more clients within the town of Westford. And then we have purchase orders for medical direction services, Merrimack Valley Emergency Physicians, for continued services for the fire department in an amount of $18,000, and Boundtree Medical LLC for continued expenses for the fire department in the amount of $45,000.
Thank you. Kristen, questions for Kristen?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Do I have a motion to waive correspondence?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Why in our correspondence was there correspondence about a well in Pepperell?
Dam.
The dam, I'm sorry, a dam in Pepperell?
We received that as an advisory from FERC, so we wanted to just make you
okay.
aware of it. So there's nothing that we need to do as actionable, but we were somehow on a list of notifications, so I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yep.
Anyway, I'll move to waive reading of correspondence.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
And can I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.